Hello, BookTube. This isn't going to be probably a long video. I'm feeling under the weather, but I had an appointment that I couldn't postpone. I couldn't get my way out of it earlier today. After a windy night, a howling windy night, the wind was so strong and so cold all night long. This is an old drafty house, and when a strong wind blows outside like we had last night, it goes right through the house. You can feel it almost as if the walls weren't there. And it also sets the whole place up to creaking and groaning and complaining, and that was made it very interesting. It was a very interesting night. It was very touching that when the wind would shriek extra loud around the house, my little schnauzer would ratchet a little closer next to me to a tighter and tighter ball. And that had an after effect today, in that the day was colder. I think I'd be willing to bet that today will be the coldest day that we have for the rest of the foreseeable future. I would be willing to bet that today will be the coldest day in March, and the coldest day thereafter from March, April, May, June, July, August, September. I'm pretty sure that there's a feel in the air, the angle of the sun, the nature of the wind, the feel of the earth. There's a feel that the grip is loosening here. One way or another, I had to go out. I had to go out when the wind was still howling early this morning. And I know this is going to sound familiar to a lot of you, but I had not planned on getting any books. None at all. This was not a case where my route took me anywhere near anything like a bookstore. I thought I was going to be completely book free, and I was kind of happy about that. I had my cell phone with tons of books on it. I was reading to beat the band. And then at one point, as my morning was wrapping up, somebody said, "Hey, you know, there's a whole bunch of books here. Do you want to take a look at them? Because we're just going to throw them away." And it was a couple of shelves of books that had accumulated at this place from patients either not needing them or dying, so they still don't need them. And it was the sorriest collection of things you've ever seen. Just so pathetic. But I don't think I'm the only one here who could not have resisted looking at them and maybe grabbing some, and I did. I ended up grabbing an armload of stuff. I ended up filling a tote bag with books, and a lot of them fit the description of Mammoth, for a March of the Mammoths, a BookTube event that's taking place all month long, where you are encouraged to read books that are 800 pages or more. Encouraged to take those big whoppers down off your shelf and actually read them, see what they're all about. All of these things are rereads, but I didn't want to leave them languishing. If I turns out that I don't want them, I can get rid of them myself. I can get rid of them at a proper bookstore where they have a very good chance of finding a home, whereas these things were just going to be thrown away. The first one is one that I know I don't like. I just grabbed it anyway. And it's a Mammoth. It's huge. It's 1,000 pages. And I thought maybe I could give it another try. Maybe. This is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This is the trade paperback of his big time travel, alternate reality JFK book that once upon a time, years ago, friends of mine who had been hearing me for decades say what an absolute fraud this author is, what an absolute talentless placeholder he is. Friends of mine, when this came out, said, "Well, he obviously knows you said that because he's written the book to get you, the book to bring you in." And I read it and thought it was really bad, monstrously self-referential, with that fake slangy thing that Stephen King does. No one talks like it, but he clearly thinks they do, and he clearly thinks it's cool. It's the way that his characters talk that no one has ever talked like, and they're not in a position. They're not in an alternate reality. They're not in Lothlorien. They're just talking weird. It's long since, by the time you get to this book in his oeuvre, he writes common, everyday, ordinary, lunch pail plaid wearing normal humans in exactly the same tone and way that a visiting space alien would write them, and does not seem to know it. He doesn't seem to see it. And I don't find it charming. I know his fans will forgive him for anything. So when you set a scene in a diner, as innumerable scenes in this book are set, with ordinary people, you know, just ordinary working stiffs, they don't sound anything like normal people, either now or in 1962. They don't sound anything like normal people at all. And the the prose never rises above cliche. It never rises above just the quickest idiom that comes to the author's mind, and it never needs to, because no editor is ever going to tell him to change it. So, you know, quick as a flash, in like Flynn, all that sort of thing. It was just whatever phrase comes very first to his mind, he'll just use over and over again. It's just, in addition to being bad, it's just so lazy. It's just such lazy writing. And this is about a main character who gets a chance, after a very convoluted, throat-tearing opening, he gets a chance to go back in time and stop the JFK assassination. Only the book then multiplies into multiple timelines where the assassination is stopped. There are multiple futures that branch off from there. One is described in great detail, what would happen if the assassination had been prevented, that sort of thing. And when this came out, in addition to friends told me, all right, well, you know, jokingly, they said, well, he's clearly written a book to get you as a fan. And it didn't work. And when I read it, and when I told friends that, I said, you know, this didn't work. It's just so wrong. So, I mean, it's embedded deeply, not only in a specific period of history, but in a specific person in history, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And it gets so much wrong. King says in the afterword of this book that he'd been researching it for decades. Well, I don't know what he was doing at that time, and friends of mine actually said, well, the more you know about JFK, the less you're going to like the book. And I guess they thought that was a recommendation. I don't know. For March of the Mammoths, I may try it again. It's, you know, we're only on this merry-go-round once. I may try it again. The most popular and best-selling male author of fiction in the 20th century wrote a big 1,000-page book on the assassination of JFK. So maybe I'll try it again. Although it'll be the third time now, and I don't think I missed anything the first time, much less the second time. Then this next one, I have often seen. It's a work of history. It's not a mammoth. I have often seen it. I had it once upon a time. I've had it many times. I often see it in used bookstores in a trade paperback, and I always think, well, the trade paperback isn't sturdy enough. I'm going to manhandle it to pieces. So I need to wait to see a hardcover. And in all that time, in so many used bookstores and charity shops, I never actually did see a hardcover until today, just sitting there on that forlorn little shelf. And that is this, Fin de Sickle, Vienna. This is a lovely thing. I mean, the cover is very elegant, and it's a story about Vienna before the end of the world. All of the political figures and the social figures, and especially the literary figures. Oh my, as the literary history of the city, this is so good. It's just so good just in general. It's an absolutely terrific work of popular history. It had a very lively print run, and you do see it in used bookstores all the time. I see it all the time. It's very familiar gold look to it. But I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of times I've seen it in hardcover. So I grabbed it today. And the thing I like about it, in addition to maybe the temptation of rereading parts of it, is the certainty that it will just go on my history shelf. It's not going to go anywhere, and that's great. Then this next one is one that I got the advanced copy of it. I got the finished copy of it, and I don't think I ever got the trade paperback, now that I think about it. I wrote about it at length and so did everybody else. This thing has blurbs on it from Craig Shirley, Christopher Hitchens, Doris Kearns Goodwin. This is the Reagan Diaries, here in a nice trade paperback. There is a blurb on the inside from the Christian Science Monitor, but I'm pretty sure that's not me. Pretty sure I wasn't writing for them. But if I remember, I will try and find the long review I did of this myself. And this is exactly what it says it is. Ronald Reagan kept a diary. It's often a disarmingly personal volume. He was conscientious about it, but fairly lowbrow, the way he was with everything. So that you can read it, and at times you're thinking, okay, well, that's a remarkably honest, forthright statement of an angry father or a concerned husband. You'll read that on one page and you'll think that. And then on the next page, you'll read that same tone about King Faisal or the premier of the Soviet Union. And you'll think, that's appalling. It's amazing. From page to page, your reaction to the same register will be completely different. Because on the one hand, you're thinking, well, as a diary, this is wonderfully honest, wonderfully readable, wonderfully immediate. There's the best diarist trick is one that Reagan had naturally, which is not to gussy up your thoughts and feelings. If you're keeping a diary or a journal and you do that, you are turning the whole experience into into a bit of a fraud. It's supposed to be your immediate thoughts. It's not a memoir. So on the one hand, you have that, but on the other hand, that very approach shows how intellectually and even sometimes morally outgunned this guy was when he was stepping up to the world stage, where the fate of the country was at stake. So it's a fascinating reading experience, because from page to page, you'll go from genuinely liking the person who is making the entries to being appalled that you'll remind yourself on other pages, you'll remind yourself that the person who's making these entries was the President of the United States, and that you'll be appalled. This is a wonderful, wonderful job. It's done by Douglas Brinkley, and I had the Reader's Advance copy, and I used that to write my review, and then I got the finished copy. I don't think I ever got this. This is the trade paperback. I don't think I ever got this, and I long since got rid of the advance copy and the hardcover. I don't know why I do that. The Reagan Diaries, and yet I got rid of it. But I found it today, and it belongs on the shelf. It's an important enough American document so that I should have it, and it's also entertaining to read. So I don't know why I got rid of it. It's an oft repeated thing on this channel. I don't know why I got rid of it. This next one is another mammoth. It's huge, and I haven't read it but once. I read it when it first came out. It has the library dust jacket and everything. It first came out in 1986, when all the world made sense, and when Ronald Reagan was in the White House. This is by David Eisenhower, and it's about his grandfather. This is Eisenhower War, 1943 to 1945. And David Eisenhower, if I remember correctly, says right at the beginning of this book in his foreword that he could have made it, about this volume about a much longer stretch of his grandfather's life and career, but why bother when this was the peak of it? This was the most intense part. This was D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge and, all that organizational stuff. This was Eisenhower running the show. And the thing that struck me about this back in the 80s when I first read this, and I itched to review it. I wasn't reviewing books so much when this came out. I was mostly editorializing, but the thing that struck me then was that, David Eisenhower gets this gig by virtue of blood. And yet I was struck by how good a historian he is, how good a writer he is. And now, lots of time has passed, so I imagine that I will come to this fairly fresh. And again, as far as Eisenhower books goes, am I all that interested in what Eisenhower did before this? Not particularly. No, there's a big one-volume biography of Eisenhower that I used to have. I forget who published it. But they did a very pretty trade paperback, and I don't have that. I used to have it, and there were a few years ago there was a whole series of books about Eisenhower as president, and I had a bunch of those. I think I still have one of those, by H.W. Brands, I think it was. But this is what we remember Eisenhower for, I think. Not so much his presidency as him winning the war. And that's what this book is all about. And it's huge. It's a chunker. It's a mammoth. So it will work from March of the Mammoth. And I think this next one will as well. This is the last one, thank God, because I can't do much more. I can't sit up for much longer. How long is this thing? Oh no, this is just 650 pages long. And your mammoth has to be 800 pages. And I asked Jason and Kelly if 750 pages would work, and they screamed obscenities at me, as usual. So no, it won't. 800 pages. So this won't work, but this is the thing that I talk about a keeper. Talk about something that goes in the permanent collection. This goes in here, and I don't know why I keep getting rid of it. I get hardcovers, I get rid of them. I get paperbacks, I get rid of them. This is a great book, if you're in my profession especially. This is Books of the Century. This is a big collection of book reviews from the New York Times Book Review, starting in the 1890s when the whole thing started as a Saturday supplement, and going all the way to whenever this volume ends, the 1980s, yes, 1998. So all the way to 1998, and it has little insets. It has Mark Summers illustrations all throughout it. It has there's another one. There's now. It has insets called Oops, where they print on the side. They print the reviewer getting something wrong. There's Clockwork Orange, where the reviewer reviews a work that has since entered the canon and bashes it all to hell and gone. They do that for a whole bunch of books in here. I never know quite what to make of that. A reviewer's judgment is a reviewer's judgment, but this book also includes a good selection of essays, the longer essays that do still appear sometimes in the New York Review of Books, or New York Times Book Review, and it includes some letters and editor picks over decades. It's the full work. It's a really well done thing, and I always get rid of it. I always send it to people. And one of the things I love about this volume, in addition to just how interesting it is, just how if you're a bookish person, it's just so endlessly interesting to flip to almost any page and say, oh, so this is what this book got. This is the review this book got. How many people have been reading the Times Book Review long enough and have enough memory to know anyway? No, you're going to get reminded of things in this volume. But in addition to that, the main thing that I like about this is that as you're going through the pages, first at the beginning when the reviews weren't signed, and then for the most of the time when they were, you're encountering not just books, but reviewers. You're encountering the whole litany of reviewers, some of whom were major authors, and that gets more prominent as time goes on. You can see that happen, that disease, where major book review sections, especially, nobody offends like the New York Times. Nobody does it as bad as the New York Times Book Review, where they started to get celebrities to review things, or authors to review other authors, that sort of thing. And to view that as some sort of qualification when it's not. It's a disqualification. One way or another, you get plenty of old war horses whose names I remember so well. So this book obviously belongs in pride of place right in this bookcase behind me. I don't know why I keep getting rid of it. I will, since the fates put this in my path today, I will not get rid of this volume. I will just hold on to it. And that was it. It was a totally unplanned book haul where somebody actually said to me, hey, I've got this bunch of books that we're going to throw away, and you happen to be here, and we know you're bookish. So would you take these? Would you take a look at these and take whatever, or tell us a little about them in case maybe I'd like one? I don't know anything about these. Could you tell us about them? So it was made for a fun half hour. And it landed me with books, and I don't think I can do a Steve Pyramid. I don't think I can do a Steve Pyramid. I'm having a hard enough time keeping myself upright without keeping these things upright. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now. I'm not going to do a tag for Tag Tuesday. I hate that. Still not getting to my Q&As or anything else like that. It's all gonna have to wait. But I did want to see you, so I'm gonna wrap this up for now. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.